Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network. It's so interesting. I'm sure that was probably seems like a while ago for you, your campaign strategist thing. But I keep saying I think this has unexpectedly turned out to be just the best campaign ad ever for Biden. This whole tawdry, what did somebody say? They just said, oh, it's just a lot of yuck. It's all the yuck about Donald Trump that you remember and more that you didn't know, right? All the stupid pundits that were like, this is only going to help him. I always was saying that. No, it's not. How is this going to help him?
Well, it'll help him with fundraising, maybe. But I don't know how. I don't know how that. There was a recent article about how the fundraising that he's been doing over the last 4 years to pay for his legal bills have really burned his ability to raise small dollar contributions. So I think, yes, it will help with fundraising, but not as much as people think it will, because he's already burned that bridge to some extent over the last 4 years, raising tens of millions of dollars for legal bills.
Yeah. I just feel like he gets sadder and smaller and more pathetic by the day. He just looks like a sad, tired, grumpy old man. And then this thing yesterday, so he leaves court and he goes and takes a photo op, pretending to be president. He he did a photo op with Japan's former prime minister and gave him a White House quote unquote key. Well, somebody just tweeted, did he steal that key? Only a lunatic like Trump would do this. Someone else wrote, not sure what gives him the right to do this. Probably citizen Trump once again pretending to be president. I mean, it's getting so pathetic, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder if the key is actually just from some random hotel that or maybe from the New Jersey and was it a key or was it a key card? Like you would get.
Yeah. But Carl, again, as a former campaign strategist, this whole, I feel like you almost got the whole case in day one with Pecker. Pardon the expression. I'm sorry.
You love that.
I can't really say that enough. But I mean, the fact that not only was this whole thing orchestrated in Trump Tower, but, like Michael Cohen, I think, talked about how he'd be calling David Pecker after every Republican debate, and whoever did well, Cruz or Rubio or whatever, that's who they'd plant the fake damaging story about. I mean, this was a whole fake news operation that went to all of his opponents up to and including Hillary, right?
Yes, 100%. And I don't think it's just done damage in this case. I think it's painting a picture about the election interference cases that are working their way up through the courts all over the country. Now we're here in Arizona and Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. So it is, somebody who would be willing to do that and somebody who would be willing to engage in the catch and kill scheme that we now know about, along with the evidence that we've seen about the fake electors and everything else. All of this feeds the same narrative. And in politics, that's the difficulty, right? In 2016, Republicans tried to capitalize on 30 years of their efforts, spending millions of dollars to make Hillary Clinton the untrustworthy candidate. Mm-hmm. And that's the thread that they wove through all of their narratives. With Trump, all of these cases center on the same thing: undue influence over our elections.
Yeah. Carl, I mean, so this, as we referenced, the state grand jury in Arizona charged top 2020 Trump campaign aides and lawyers alongside 11 so-called fake electors Wednesday over their efforts to overturn the 2020 election. So includes Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, all the usual suspects, John Eastman, Christina Bobb, Boris Epstein, Mike Roman, another campaign aide. Can you answer that question? Maybe I'm so down this rabbit hole that I don't even know or remember anymore, but where is the DOJ? This is now the fourth state that's had to come forward. Jody, do you know, is the fake elector scheme, is it part of the January 6th charges from Jack Smith or what?
It might be.
This is just so extraordinary that we find ourselves here, Carl, on the eve, as Liz Cheney would say, on the eve of another election, that we're just like, oh, well, Well,
I don't know if there's a federal component here for Smith, but this is certainly at the state level. Anybody who participated in an effort to defraud the voters of those states from the representatives that they elected. Remember, we're voting for electors when we vote for president. And so to not allow the elected electors from the people in any given state to do their job. That's certainly highly problematic.
Yeah. I want to get, this is a psychological, you're going to have to put on your psychologist cap now and your campaign strategist cap. We've said this over and over, but I feel, oh, you just turned your baseball hat around. Okay, good. That kind of sums up everything you need to know about TV punditry. Okay.
Or, in my case, my understanding of radio punditry, that I could turn the hat around and people could,
it's like all the epidemiologists suddenly became Middle East experts overnight. But I just wanted to get your take on John Pavlovitz, who's quite eloquent on Threads, etc. He said, "I sincerely believe that nearly everyone still supporting Trump knows he's a horrible human being and is guilty of high crimes against this nation, but they simply can't admit to themselves or anyone else that they made a mistake. They're willing to let America die on the altar of their pride." I mean, it's like anybody that's ever trying to warn someone that their husband or wife or partner is a rat bastard. You feel like, but even after, the breakup, you feel like, okay, you don't want to humiliate them and go, oh, I told you so. Like, do you have advice on how to handle this, or what segment of the population just does not want to be wrong or think they lost?
Most people don't like to be wrong or admit they've lost. In fact, guest idea for you, Chris Mooney, who wrote The Republican Brain. Now, the book could have easily been called The Political Brain because he goes into the brain chemistry and psychology of our politics for everybody. But in essence, one of the things that he talks about is how studies show that in order for somebody to change their politics, either to go from right to left or to admit that they were wrong with a candidate or whatever, it takes a monumental psychological impact. And because they have to admit that they were wrong, right? Saying that this person is problematic that you supported means that you picked somebody who was problematic. And so many Republicans, the experience of the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years, has been the monumental psychological impact that was necessary to dislodge them, right? We still see them voting against Trump, even though he's the nominee, right?
I mean, like most evil dictators or cult leaders, I guess he's good enough at that, right? At knowing how people's psychology works and they don't want to be wrong or think they lost. So here's the big lie for you. We didn't lose.
I don't know that he understands how it works. I certainly think he's parroting what he's seen on TV or heard about from historians. And so there is not a lot of point in trying to persuade somebody who has not yet been persuaded on Donald Trump. The people who were persuadable were persuaded over the last 6 years or on January 6th. If none of that persuaded them, they're not persuadable.
Yeah. So there are very few persuadable voters left at this point. I mean,
you're upwards of 20% of Republicans who are still not supporting him. Many of them have already left to become independents or vote for Democrats.
So speaking of bad news, though, for Donald Trump, hold, please. Who just voted? Pennsylvania? You probably know this, Carl. Nikki Haley got way more votes than Joe Biden won by last time, and she dropped out how long ago? I mean, that is a horrible sign, isn't it, for Donald Trump? Oh, here it is. Sorry, Kyle Griffin said more than 155,000 Pennsylvania Republican primary voters cast a ballot for Nikki Haley yesterday, even though Trump clinched the nomination weeks ago. President Biden won Pennsylvania in 2020 by 80,000 votes. I mean, wow. And by the way,
it's a double-sided sword. What it tells me is that Trump's support in the Republican Party is not where it needs to be for him to be elected, which is fantastic. But what it also tells me is that there are Republicans out there who think that Trump's Republican Party is an aberration when it's actually the reality they now live in.
But, Michael Steele was asked yesterday, former RNC chair, about, do those voters vote for Biden or do they stay home? And he said people that would come out in a primary to vote for someone that has already left the primary months ago, he said those aren't stay-at-home voters.
I agree.
Do you agree?
Oh, I agree. I agree with that. But it also makes me ask the question, do they vote for the next Republican nominee if it's not Donald Trump? And I'm not entirely sold that they would continue voting against the Republican Party, even though it's not likely to change much after Trump is gone.
Yeah. No, I've said from day one, Carl, between, I don't know, health and legality. I don't know if he's going to end up being the nominee, but we'll see. I love this one. Jasmine tweeted, I haven't heard Don Snorleone attack David Pecker like he does to everyone else. Pecker must have some really juicy stuff on him. Imagine the stuff we don't know. It is curious. He hasn't attacked David Pecker, even Hope Hicks, who's going to testify against him. I mean, because they probably know where all the bodies are buried, and probably literally, allegedly.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the way he's been doing the attacking seems, strategic in a certain sense, and so, I would not put it past him if he eventually turns on them too. I mean, this is not a guy who doesn't.
Yeah, David Pecker, to me, it's just, it's also, as someone said, yuck. It's just so creepy underbelly, like, and he's still sort of weirdly sucking up to Trump. Like, oh, he was the most eligible bachelor, he dated the most beautiful women. First of all, he wasn't a bachelor during any of that time. He was married. He's just, right. You realize, like, what sleaze all these guys are, And
I thought all this time that the tabloids were just filled with, exemplary human beings.
I'm sorry, Carl. I'm sorry. The boat sinks in Titanic. Okay.
The wife did it. Trump would associate himself with figures like that.
One last one, and because I've said to you and I've talked about this, I think this is going to be the driving force. Randy Mayhem Singer tweeted, women want to live in a country where our doctor and not Brett Kavanaugh decides what a life-threatening emergency is and what should be done about it. Hashtag Rovember is coming. I mean, if I could have thought Alito and that they were any more despicable when you start hearing these arguments, I just think when you think it's impossible for women to get madder, just wait.
Well, and if Republicans thought that women were just going to cool off by the time the elections came around, A, they were wrong to begin with, but B, this is just further proof that they will not.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I'm trying to hold, please. Dean Obeidallah, I thought, as a lawyer, summed it up best. He said, today the GOP will argue before the U.S. Supreme Court that they should be allowed to kill women to save a fetus.
Yep.
That's how visceral this is.